Time for another board recap podcast. How are you today, Dr. Smith?
It is a great day.
Beautiful day, March 1st here. So let's take a look at last night's meeting. We'll start with a quick recap of good news. We lifted the fact last night that 60 of our elementary students got to participate in a recent vocal clinic, which is a great experience for those young singers. We had 19 elementary and middle school students qualify for all-state choir, which that is certainly something to celebrate. And speaking of all-state choir on the high school side, 6 of the 8 spots in our region were taken by EVSC choir members. So congratulations to all of
You
them.
bet. Congratulations. Quite a feat.
Yeah, a lot of talent there. Speaking of talent, you're going to be a part of this tonight as well. And it's at the Victory if you're listening to this here on Tuesday at 7 o'clock. And just tell us briefly about what our very talented musicians are going to be doing.
Sure. It's a great opportunity for our students. We're blessed in the EVSC to have high school honors programs as well as middle school honors programs for our fine and performing arts. So, tonight, in a very unusual and special concert, we're combining the talent of our high school honors band or high school honors orchestra as well as a high school honors chorus. And it's been a real thrill to be able to work with our students this season. And the last three numbers, actually, the last two numbers are finales that incorporate the talents of all of those combined groups. So it's an exciting venue, and the students are are incredible performers. I would encourage anyone and everyone to come out to the Victory 7 o'clock tonight. It is free of charge, and you will not be disappointed. Our
No, that is,
students,
yeah, great.
uh, and they deserve to have a great audience.
Yes, yes. And I know, as you said, you're directing some of the pieces and you've really enjoyed just getting to work with those students and seeing that talent in front of you.
I really have. It's been a highlight of my year.
Definitely. Great, great to hear that. Going back to good news last night, talked about Mindy Embry. She's a clerical assistant at Oak Hill Elementary School. She was named our February Cause for Applause winner. We always love going out doing those, and
Yes, we do.
there was no doubt she was well thought of when you and I were out there for
We
that.
appreciate everything that she does.
Definitely. Also, congrats to Beth Hagan. A lot of people, especially on the west side, know Beth. She has been the longtime athletic director at Wrights High School, and she is the District 6 Athletic Director of the Year, a well deserved honor for
It
her.
is well deserved. Very, very hard worker. She's a staple on the West Side and a tremendous leader. So
Definitely.
very happy for her.
And then just finally last night mentioned that you had the honor of being able to participate in a recent panel discussion talking about school improvement. And I know that's something with all of your expertise and just getting to join forces with others in that arena. Definitely something I know that represents not only you, but the EVSC as well. And we're pleased to have a seat at that table.
We certainly are. This was the 15th anniversary of the Turnaround Challenges, authored by Mass Inside Education, and very impressive panel. Not myself excluded from that group, but it was very good to do.
Yeah, great. Glad you got to participate in that. And if you would then take us back to the agenda from last night, Dr. Smith, and let's look at consent items.
Certainly will. So, under consent item 2.02, consideration of allowance of payments. This was a little bit larger than normal because we have a 3 week span of time in between board meetings. So, that meant that we had two pays included on this allowance of payment, as well as incorporating our health insurance spend. So, that's why the amount of $20,050,106.20 is a little bit higher than what we typically see in a normal 2 week period of time. Moving on then to item 2.03, consideration to approve the resolution to transfer from the education fund to the operations fund. Several years ago, when the General Assembly enacted a statute that changed funds from the general fund and the levy funds to what is now called the education fund and the operations funds. Well, they still use what I would call the education fund as the receiver of funds. So not all of the expenses that used to be in the previous general fund stayed in the education fund. So then those expenses were transferred to the operations fund. So now we have to transfer on a quarterly basis the revenue that we receive in the education fund to the operations fund to cover those expenses. And for the last year, as well as this year, it will be $5.5 million per quarter. Item 2.07, consideration to approve the naming resolution for Central High School basketball court. Uh, I was really pleased to be part of that celebration
Those are really
recently.
special when those happen.
It very, very special. John Wessel, an incredible mentor and teacher and basketball coach at Central High School. And it was just great to see all of his family and friends surround him as that was unveiled as the John Wessel Court. just really a special night at Central High School.
And when you see a naming event like that, you really get a feel for just all of the people that those individuals impacted. Obviously, their immediate family and friends are always around them, but typically that stems too from just all of the former students or players or whatever that individual is involved in. And I mean, some of these people are, they're not teenagers anymore, and so just the impact that they had so many years ago, it's very telling.
It is, and, not only does John's legacy live on, it goes beyond that. It is his example of servant leadership, its example of mentoring, it's what he meant to students generations ago that will continue to live on in future generations every time everyone sees his name emblazoned in that court.
Yeah, very well deserved.
Yes. And then finally, under consent, item 2.05, consideration approved fine arts winter guard instructors. We are really blessed also to have a corporation-wide honors winter guard,
And that's
actually
unique.
2.
Not every school
It
district
is
has
very
that.
unique. But once again, it's an investment in our students, and appreciate the board's approval of that.
And tremendous talent. We've put videos of them up before on social media if you're not familiar with that activity. And wow, very talented, hardworking individuals.
I couldn't have said it better. There's video evidence
Yes.
of individuals carrying out their assignment, and there is nowhere to hide.
No.
You can't sit behind a desk quietly and people assume that you are able to do your job. That is, you are on display front and center, not only moving as you should in a synchronous fashion, but also doing the equipment work with the guard or whatever prop you happen to have. The way it builds teamwork, responsibility, grit, resilience in our students, it is a great activity.
And that takes us to personnel.
Yes, and then, as I always say, the personnel recommendation was approved by the board, and it is there for you to open and see the actions that the board took place when it comes to personnel. Just remind our audience that we have about 3,400 employees.
Okay. And then when you look at action items then from last night, of course, if you remember, if you watched or listened to our previous podcast, most of these were information items. We had on Stacy Mauser and Daryl Angermeyer, and they really did a deep dive into each one of these, which we really appreciated them for. So if you want to take us through action, these would be many of the items they're talking about.
Absolutely. And let's start off with 4.01, which is consideration to agree to the agreement, excuse me, with MBI Worldwide. So basically, they will provide the background checks now for our employees and employee candidates. And that is a company that we had gone with previously, and we're going back with them. We appreciate the service that they provide. I'm not going to go into great detail for the rest of the action items because, as you said, we had two guests last
Mhm.
board meeting recap that did go into great depth and detail, but I'll just cover them on a somewhat surface level. Item 4.02 is consideration to approve the network infrastructure upgrade bids. So a lot of this is for wireless access points as well as network switches. People now just assume in this day and age that wireless technology and access to the wireless features of our computers and electronic devices are just there automatically. It takes a lot of infrastructure and a lot of work on behalf of many people to make certain that reliable access to wireless internet is there. So
And it's a necessity for us now and for our
it
students.
certainly is, and I'm fairly certain that we are the largest consumer of wireless technology in this region.
I think that would be a fair statement.
Item 4.03, consideration of new tech laptops. So new tech is a phenomenal school for us, and they have as their um, really all of their curriculum is hosted on their laptops. So these are a little bit more powerful laptops than we have for our other high schools. That was approved last night for the remaining high school students, approximately 6,000. Then we will purchase high school Chromebooks. And I appreciate the work that Stacy does in making certain that all of the considerations are fulfilled from the vendors from the time the initial bid is put out to the time the recommendations come in. Item 4.05, then moving into facilities, consideration to award the contract for the Cedar Hall exterior painting and site improvement project. So this basically is going to spruce up the exterior of Cedar Hall as well as do some grading to make certain that the water flows away from the building and into the drains as it should. Item 4.06, this is going to do some site foundation repair at Central High School that Daryl Angemeyer went into great detail with. or about our last board update. And then finally, under action 4.07, consideration to award the contract for the Vogel Elementary School restroom renovations. So all of the restrooms will be renovated under this action item that was approved last night by the board.
Okay, so all those action items were approved, and then that takes us to information items that were presented last night.
So, item 5.01, we're going to renovate a space within Culver Family Learning Center to house some special ed preschool kiddos, and we are excited to bring them on board. And we want to make certain that we have a great space for them. So, appreciate Daryl Angermeyer's work in that. But that is an information item, be slightly over $200,000 worth of renovations and improvements to the Culver Family Learning Center to make certain that our special ed pre K students have the optimal learning environment.
And Daryl just mentioned to me recently that is a facility where we are truly using every part of that facility for these programs, and it's a great way to serve these students.
Yes, it clearly is. 5.02, consideration to award the contract for Lincoln School playground renovation 2022. So, uh, we're really excited for this too. It will be a complete renovation of their playground space, $270,650. Quite investment. All certainly our students at Lincoln Elementary are worth that, and it is a turnkey operation, and it is also a premier substance when you think about mulch or other kinds of matting that we put down to caution or to cushion if a student should fall. This is a permanent installation that will be second to none. So we are excited to provide that for our students at Lincoln.
Yeah, that's going to be a great addition to an already beautiful facility. And as you said, those students certainly deserve to have not just a great play space outside, but a safe one at that.
Yes. And then the remaining information items, 5.03 up to 5.02 or 6, are the remaining, um, or those remaining topics are really what Dr. Underwood covers on a monthly basis, really that indicates our financial health, being really reflective of the first month of the new financial year for us. Not a whole lot of to report in terms of comparative analysis for the year, but certainly year over year there is that information there. So anyone is welcome to click on those reports and review that as you
Absolutely.
please.
Yes, absolutely. Take a look at all of those if you're interested. And then finally, you wrap things up last night. You made a couple of comments during continued business.
I did. Certainly, when we think about the General Assembly and they are wrapping up their work in Indianapolis, there's some education related bills that, frankly, I don't think are really that great for education. And as I said last night, and I think the primary or the main takeaway from my comments basically is that I trust the voters of Vanderbilt County to vote for school board members that will put in place local policies that the local citizens want. I don't think that we need to be micromanaged from Indianapolis. I understand that there were some issues perhaps in other school districts. Unfortunately, when a law is passed in Indianapolis, it typically tends to be a one size fits all approach. But as I said, I trust the voters in Vanderbilt County. They know what's best for the citizens and for the students that we serve here in Vanderbilt County. And I simply would ask that the elected officials in Indianapolis turn their attention to statewide issues and those issues that should be and should remain under local control, remain under local control.
And I think that's very well said and a great way to end this. And appreciate you going through everything on this. Another board meeting recap podcast, Dr. Smith, and we'll do this again following our next school board meeting.
Sounds great.